Hello, welcome to the Squarebase Show for this spooky Halloween special. Because it's Halloween, we're doing the vampire casting stuff!
It's Halloween!
A special All Hallows Eve to those that celebrate it.
Shh. Rob, do
What
you
is
hear
it?
that?
I don't hear it.
Crap. Rob.
Is that an orca?
I had set this up. Hold on. Rob, do you hear that? It's a very spooky Halloween deep dive!
That's actually amazing. I actually loved that. That was 11 out of 10. Huge news. So brilliant.
New sound effect, guys.
Good for sound effects. It's been a while since we've done deep dive. A special thank you to everyone who commented on our last lore video. I know some people were a little bit like, what the hell are you two doing? But as we talked about before, becoming omni hobbyists, good at painting, good at playing, good at the lore, requires a little bit of effort. And, baby steps.
Rob, like I said in the last show, there's a common lore show format where one person knows what they're talking about, explains some very arcane lore to someone who has no idea about it, and that's like a common thing. It's very successful. So just think when you have two idiots explaining lore that they have never read before. We're like 40 chess, man. Like we've got this.
Paradigm shift. That's what it is. It's a paradigm shift. I think it's fun.
Very frustrating, I'm sure, to anyone who has love and respect for any of this lore.
Well, my thought was always, because they know more than us. I've never read a YouTube commenter who doesn't think that they know more than the person watching the video, making the video, ever. Shout out to everyone on YouTube and the podcast. Obviously, you know more than us already. So why not just lean into that and you help us on that journey? That's what I'm thinking. Same way we're about to do a Vampire Counts deep dive, ignoring the fact you've just played them at an event. Everyone knows more. Everyone knows more than us already. So it's almost like, why make the video? But we will anyway.
We're not charlatans, Rob. We come open-hearted. We come to this game as students of life.
Hands outstretched. Hands outstretched.
That's right.
Yeah.
Open arms.
Yeah.
And love me some Vampire Counts. Probably my second favorite army, based on vibes.
Based on vibes.
I just love the Vampire Counts. They've always captured my imagination. I've been looking forward to this particular one forever. When we said to each other, what the hell are we going to talk about this week? And then we accidentally had to switch to Thursday because of daylight savings time. Why not do this on this great Halloween? Also, shout out Peaches, my bulldog, 10 years old today.
Oh,
10 years young.
Peaches.
Peaches, born on Halloween, spooky bulldog. Anyway, there you go.
All right, well, I'm excited to do this. Now, this is obviously one of the legacy armies. If you the first time you've watched any Old World content ever,
the motherfucking renegade.
Yeah, they're broken out. These are currently unofficial factions. Although me and Val are pretty certain these have become official factions in Old World 2, which we don't think is probably more than a year and a bit away. Like maybe
who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if it was that long, but
oh wow.
Even if it's a year and a bit, I mean, like we're only we've already done a year of this. So if they do 3 years of it, only 2 years to go.
Yeah. Yes. Also, shout out to Fixie, who's in the chat. Who's just highlighted a comment, who has said a deep dive, even though they've taken Vampire Counts rules off the website. So actually, we found a little bug this morning as we were prepping for the show, and the Vampire Counts PDF, which is freely available from Games Workshop, based SDS Studio, very bast SDS, was for some reason unavailable on the American version of the website, which I don't understand why, but there we go. But me and Val checked it, and it was available on other versions of the site. So, let us know if maybe America has just been like, where's the Vampire Counts? Anyway, long history, the Vampire Counts, obviously the Von Carsteins. Just a little bit of a shout back. This is a obviously, like timeline wise, we're a little bit, but we're before kind of when the famous vampires, at least, might have been knocking around. Have I got that right?
After.
Just after. Yes, just after.
That's why there's no vampire counts in Old World, you see, because the Von Carstens have been defeated in the Vampire Wars.
There we
go. And so there are no more vampires, as they have said. That's why they're not a core faction.
No more vampires.
Which is, of course, very silly. Yeah. Lots of vampires around. But yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, but does open up. I little secret wish list for me is that maybe someday in the far off future we get like a dope ass campaign book that's the Vampire Wars, because it's right in this era of the setting, just a little bit before. Just like Mordheim is just a couple hundred years before where we are in the setting.
And a lot of what they're doing right now with things like legacy armies and a bunch of the other, like, you know, obfuscating, like there's no other vampires, etc. A lot of that's to do with the fact that like there's this ongoing conversation between main studio and SDS, and I think eventually in the fruition of time all of this will become real. I think that they've been given, we've talked about this before, the scope of the project has been greatly expanded, so I think we're in a really good spot. So probably I would be uncomfortable doing a deep dive and getting you excited about running an army or buying some models for an army that maybe you couldn't play in the future. But I think that actually we're going to see a lot of these factions unlocked and usable in the future versus them be put into the graveyard.
I would also say that a good way to ensure that doesn't happen is by actively playing these things and demanding it. That's how... Like they are ultimately a business, and although they are grumpy about it, they do deliver fan service frequently. So yeah, like playing the legacy armies is how we make sure the legacy armies don't become a legacy.
I agree. Okay, so we are going to deep dive these, but before we go any deeper, just as a quick pitch. We're not. This isn't doing an early deep dive like early into the edition. This is obviously doing one much later, as people have been playing these at the local clubs, playing them at still the limited amount of events we've had around, knocking around for the old world, but still playing quite a lot. And if anything, one of the boogeyman lists, or maybe one of the scariest lists available in competitive setting, does come from this. Val, have you got like what you think is a TLDR pitch for the army? Like, if you got like do you kind of like an overview, or what would you kind of like? What would you say about it?
I would say, do you like psychology rules? No, then this is the army for you.
Perfect.
And Kings. That's one of it. I think it's just got it's got a tremendous amount of variety. It's a very deep bench. So even for a so-called renegade or legacy list, there's a lot you can do here. It does have a lot of unit choices. There's probably a best in slot, and that's what you're going to see in tournaments and stuff. But I think there's a lot of meat on the bone to design things. I don't know. It's a really fun list, and despite it being a renegade list, still has a lot of flavor, which is one of the great things about these rules. In the PDFs. So yeah, I don't know. My pitch would be is if you like spooky things, you probably like vampire counts. Won't lie.
Yeah.
It's the wet undead. That's actually one way I like is dry undead and wet undead.
That is uncomfortable. Yeah, my hot. I don't think it's a hot take at all. I think many vampire counts players would say the same. I would say that I think just like you, it's got a lot of flavor. There's so much cool stuff in here. I would say that it feels a little truncated and also maybe like a little ludonarrative dissonant because of maybe the top end, which immediately we'll get into when we start talking about the army composition and the army rules, because of how like they linearly structured some of the elements of the army. It feels like you are a little bit railroaded into some unit choices. And then those unit choices then railroad you even further down the line. Now, I'm not necessarily saying like it's not like a hard railroad. It's more of like a heavy suggestion.
I mean, this ain't Skaven or demons. Like it's not that bad. Yeah, there are conditional choices in the list, and there are definitely things that are better than other things, no doubt. But I just like, if you love skeletons instead of zombies, for example, I think you can still make a decent army out of skeletons, like as your base.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. Like I like I think there's a lot of play here. The tippy top end of it, yeah, I would agree. There's probably some archetypes that people feel pressured into, but I mean that's going to be the way things go. One thing I do love, and I just want to shout out very quickly, like the S-Bot 2 that's been going off, is that we are seeing innovation in the meta. Like the meta is shifting, and people are innovating to deal with boogeymen in the meta, and vampire counts I think is ripe for that kind of innovation. So
I think the Scream list is a problem list, but I think you can build other problem lists from this book, 100%, which is cool. All right, so vampire counts. We're going to start talking about the Grand Army composition list and what you can take. I'll hit through this bit maybe, and then we'll swap and change. But characters. You must have one wizard. We're going to talk about that. Probably we should talk about that straight off the top, actually, because I think that's probably the most important bit, if that's okay. So we're going to talk about the death of a general special rule. Every vampire count's army is animated and driven onwards by... Oh, maybe I don't need to read this much. Okay. To represent this, the general of a vampire count's army must also be a wizard, be they a vampire, a necromancer, or a Strigoi Ghoul King. If your army includes only a single wizard, that wizard must be your general, even if they are not the character with the highest leadership in your army. Should your general be slain, the magical animus of the army starts to dissipate as soon as your general is removed from play. As a casualty, all friendly units with the Necromantic Undead special rule lose Regeneration X special rule. In addition, at the end of the phase in which your general was removed from play as a casualty, and during the start of each of your start of turn subphases for the remainder of the game, all friendly units with the Necromantic Undead special rule that are currently on the battlefield must make a leadership test. If the test is failed, the unit loses a number of wounds equal to the amount which it failed. Okay, so that's the top. How do you feel about that? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's they've mirrored the way Tomb Kangs work, and I think I don't know. It's a little spicy thing. It kind of makes you want to have a casting like a necromancer as your general rather than a vampire count. That is like Warriors of Chaos. One of the problems with I think this list that we'll discover is that vampire counts themselves are kind of a secondary tier thing, and so you probably want something that you can keep safe as your general rather than the actual vampire lord. So yeah, I think it's a cool rule. They used to have a rule where they would stop crumbling because they could like a different wizard in your army could take over that role, but they no longer have that. They're more in line with the way Tomb Kings are.
I would say that that initially, immediately, obviously, is like, okay, I need a wizard, and then when we start looking at those units, just like you've said, you're like, okay, I need a wizard. And also, I'm playing Old World, so I probably need a level 4 wizard. Okay, cool. What are my options for a level 4 wizard? Well, this is going to blow your mind. But we'll get to that in a moment. But this is pretty important, and your general being alive. Also, I also don't want my general now to be a combat frontline character. I don't want my general to be charging into combat, fighting, and maybe losing sometimes, because then the rest of my army becomes significantly worse, which is bad. So I'm not vibing on that. So... Yeah, I think
the good news is, though, as far as like a casting general wizard, vampire counts with a necromancer and a mortis engine have perhaps the best one in the game.
Yeah.
So it's not really that bad.
No, but
and ample bunkers and shit that you can use, so it actually frees up if you really want that blender lord. It frees up that guy to go out and swang it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would It just we really should kind of like cross out vampire and maybe put like on the thumbnail, maybe put like necromancer count legacy army. All right, so you need 1+ wizard, and that's because of that army special rule, and then you can have up to 1 vampire count master necromancer or Strigoi Ghoul King per 1,000 points, which again kind of truncates you because you do need that general. It's probably going to be that master necromancer, and now you're like, cool, what am I going to, like you're a little bit limited. And then you have 1 White King or Banshee per 1,000 points, and then not infinite, but you know what I mean, Vampire Thralls, Necromantic Allies, White Lords, and Cairnrays. And then for core, Skeleton warriors, zombies, crypt ghouls, bat swarms, and direwolves. And if your own army includes one or more White King, a unit of Graveguard or Black Knights may be taken as a core choice, which I think is really nice.
It's just an outstanding core options for the Vampire Counts list. Just really great. Also super, like, yeah, you got to spend 500 points in a 2,000 point army on some very cheap units, but so you get a lot of core, a lot of really useful table space taking up things, and the potential, especially if you're bringing that battle standard bearer, of adding Graveguard, whom are very good block infantry. So yeah, it's I think their core is excellent.
Great. Special, up to 1 unit of Graveguard or Black Knight per 1,000 points, up to 1 unit of Cryptos or Fellbats per 1,000 points, up to 3 Corpse Carts, up to 1 Spirit Host or Cairn Wraith per, or Tomb Banshee 1,000 points. Just up to 1, unit of Spirit Host, Cairn Wraith, or Tomb Banshee. I apologise. And it's up to 3 Corpse Carts, not per 1,000 points. And if your general is a Strigoi Ghoul King...
0 to 1 units of Spirit Hosts per Cairn Wraith or Tomb Banshee taken.
No, yes, you're correct. I should slow down. And if your general is a Strigoi Ghoul King, 1 unit of Varghese or 1 unit of Terrorgeist may be taken as special choice. What are your thoughts?
I've never noticed that. So that means that you could get 4 Terrorgeists into one list?
Are you happy with that?
That's funny. I've just never picked up on that. That's wild. You can get 4 Screaming Turkeys into this list. That's wild. Because I originally thought that they would, because you kind of max out on rare, but I've never noticed. So that's pretty fun. Well, so you can mount one on a Strigoi. Strigoi is the only guy the only one who can ride the Hell Turkey. The Terrorgeist. We'll get to him. Screaming bird, bat, dead bat thing. They can be mounted on one, so you get one there. You can squeeze 2 into rare. And you could get a 4th in special. That's quite hilarious.
That's great. Okay, I like that. And then up to 25% of your... This is rare. You can have 1 unit of Varghese per 1,000 points, up to 2 Black Coaches, 1 Terrorgeist or Varghulf per 1,000 points, up to 1 unit of Blood Knights per 1,000 points. Whew, those are expensive. And up to 1 unit of Hex Wraiths per Cairn Wraith or Tomb Banshee taken. I really like that. And then you can have a BSB, which can be a Vampire Thrall, White Lord, to be your BSB. All right. So army composition. Go on.
Renegade Army has a core army ally option assigned to me that they were intended to actually be a core army. But yeah, a lot of times Renegades don't have even rational choices there. Would have loved to see Empire as an ally option, but anyway.
Yeah, so should we just starting to look at the... Oh, no, actually, let's do the army special rules, because I think that's an addendum thing that should be quite important to discuss. We'll go look at these. So some of the units that we look at, we'll do these one at a time if that's cool with you. Some of the units that you look at are going to have Cleaving Blow as a special rule. So that'll be where their special rules are at the bottom of a unit entry. If a model with a special rule rolls a natural 6 when making a roll to wound for an attack made in combat, it struck a Cleaving Blow. Any models whose troop type are regular infantry, heavy infantry, rude, light cavalry, heavy cavalry, or war beasts are not permitted in armor or regen save. Against Cleaving Blow, ward saves can be attempted as normal. Do you like this rule?
Yeah, it's like a baby version of Killing Blow. This is the first time I've read the whole thing to the end, classic Warhammer player, and I've never noticed that it actually doesn't have the part where they have Killing Blow, where they actually killed the unit. I thought this was Killing Blow, but specifically to those unit types or troop types. And so that's good to know. I would have cheated if I ever used one of these units otherwise. So,
that's good.
But yeah, so it's like a baby. It's a great thing. It's on Graveguard and Black Knights and Whites. It's a great little rule.
Do you want to take us to Dark Vitality?
Dark Vitality. Models with this special rule are not subject to the death of a general rule. In addition, unless they have joined a unit that does not have the special rule, they and their mounts can march as normal. So they're the non-automaton units get Dark Vitality.
That's good, I think, actually, because I think that maybe there's a build not around just all the undeads, anyway, whatever. Then you got Indomitable. Oh my God, absolute. As a Warriors of Chaos stan, furious about its existence. Indomitable X. Also, like the sheer number. I'll read what it does, and I'll just say a unit of this special rule reduces the number of wounds suffered due to the unstable special rule. Which, if you don't know what that is, when you end up losing a combat, if you then do your leadership test, and then if there's a difference between the two, you lose that many wounds. That's the unstable special rule. So this basically negates those wounds that you may lose. And it's based on the number. So if it's Indomitable 1, you negate 1. If it's Indomitable 5, whatever. So note this special rule is not cumulative. If 2 or more models in a unit have a special rule, highest value, for example, if the character is Indomitable 2 joins in what unit with Indomitable 1, a whole unit uses a characteristic in Indomitable 2 special rule. So it's super effective, and also there's other, like, that doesn't say it stacks, but there are other abilities that kind of stack with it in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Indomitable X, great way of obviously mitigating crumble, which is the best way to kill undead things. So very handy, especially on those larger monsters and characters. Keeps them alive in combat.
because almost all of the units in the book are going to have unstable on them. So yeah.
As a matter of fact, Necromantic Undead. What an excellent segue, host.
Whoa.
Models with this special rule are undead. In fact, they're Necromantic Undead. Undead models cannot march unless they have the Fly X special rule and choose to move by flying. In addition, all undead models have the following universal special rules: Fear, Immune to Psych, Unbreakable, and Unstable. So unstable is what we were referring to with Indomitable. But a character with this special rule cannot join a unit without the special rule, and vice versa. I'm fairly certain this is a rule everything in the book has. It'll be interesting to keep an eye out for that, but I'm pretty sure everyone has Necromantic Undead in vampire counts. And then things like Dark Vitality and Indomitable modify how victim you are to it. However, the biggest things here, classic tropes of undead rules writing from the studio coming at you. They're immune to psychology, so they're never fleeing. They also means you can't choose to flee. They are unbreakable, so they are never. Actually, interesting thing I noticed: they don't Fabigo, which is something that I've come to take for granted. Is that you get to reform, you can like get wider if you need to, or like add ranks or whatever. These guys don't have nearly as many opportunities to reform their units because they're all unbreakable, which is interesting. And then unstable, obviously, which helps mitigate the fact that they never really lose in combat. So they die to being overwhelmed.
I think the immune to psychology element really showcases probably is like better than you would think. I always think about like a tournament run or an event run. When you need stuff to work, then if it only works 4 out of 5 times, you're never going to win the event. Similarly, like if you need things to go dead, absolutely dead. But no, it reminds me of some armies, because like there are like a lot of army archetypes or army builds that I've seen over the years in different game systems. One Fights Battle, Old World, 18 Mark, 40k, where you're like most of the time this is an 11 out of 10 situation, but sometimes it fucks up. Immune psychology is really good because there is not that game where you just blow a stupid leadership 10 reroll situation and your game falls to pieces. That's nice.
I remember actually it was a Triple Crown Wargaming guys who no longer do Old World stuff. So screw you guys.
Do they not?
No, they hated it, which is funny. So they're still doing 8th content last I checked. Anyway, doesn't matter. But they did say a cool thing in their actual 8th edition review of Vampire Counts, which was that some of the rules are punitive, i.e. they're negatives to the army. However, they always work that way, right? So if it's so like when you have a rule that is consistent, then you're able to do things to mitigate it consistently. Whereas sometimes you'll have rules that are inconsistent and negative or positive, and they're harder to game around because you never really know if it's going to impact you. Whereas these things are, even if there is a downside, you can play your game with the knowledge that that's exactly how it works. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of Undead.
Yeah, I agree. And that's actually better than I would think. So anyway, cool. those are the special rules that you'll need to know. Oh, sorry, hold on. Apologies, there's a page more. I forgot about that. There's the newly dead special rule. When resurrecting the fallen, a unit with a special rule can be taken beyond its starting size, but not beyond its maximum size. So there's that. And then you've got, after you, next one.
Wicked. I get Wailing Dirge.
Wailing Durge.
During the shooting phase of its turn, unless it marched during the preceding movement phase, a model with this special rule may make a Wailing Dirge attack. A Wailing Dirge may target any enemy unit that is within 8 inches of this model, including units that are engaged in combat, lol. And this model can draw a line of sight to or that this model is engaged in combat with. Triple Raffle lol. The target must make a leadership test with a -2 modifier to its leadership characteristic. Baked in. They're starting at -2. If this test is failed, the target suffers a number of wounds equal to the amount by which it failed the test, with no armor or regen saves permitted, ward saves permitted as normal. Note that Wailing Dirge attack can target an enemy character regardless of the usual rules for targeting lone characters. So even if they're protected by a unit that is closer to you, you can scream at them, which makes this quite dangerous. Here it is, the scream attack that has been a bugaboo in 2 consecutive editions of the game now. What are your thoughts on Wailing Dirge, Mr. Rob?
We talked about this loads. Obviously late into the edition. If this is the first time you've heard anything about vampire counts, this is super obnoxious. And Val's kind of like lol, triple lol, quadruple lols through here. Is that honestly, this should just be a shooting attack, which has the normal line of sight blocking abilities. It's super strong and should be an incredibly difficult maneuver to pull off. The reason it's outrageously strong is because it is like most of the stuff in Old World, like even charges, like with wheels, everything is pretty hard to do. Like, and all the stuff that like reduces like how difficult stuff is to do, like skirmishers having 360 line of sight for charges or other stuff. Flying units also having swift stride and being able to do the longest charges in the history of fucking time. Like all of that stuff makes stuff easy to do, and they've just taken all the restrictions off here. They're like, you can just draw line of sight. Oh, you can shoot to combat. Like just fucking. Also, when you do this, you can just take your opponent's nuts in your hand and just fucking give them a yank. Like it's just.
I do want to mitigate this a little bit because I am now both a player who has used Fanatics, which again ignore a bunch of normal sane rules in the game and restrictions in the game for like targeting things, and they can go into combat. A lot of very similar parallels to Fanatics. And the thing I would say on this is just that the average of 2d6 is 7. And so usually like a lot of units out there are going to have a leadership of, with their champion, maybe 8, 7. I mean, like a lot of the warband units are going to have leaderships of like 9. So, on average dice, you're maybe killing one guy. Where it gets spicy is when you layer in, the necromancy spells that allow you to reduce leadership. You can reduce leadership at least by 3 pips pretty easily on a specific target. So that's a -5 to the leadership. But even then, as someone whose dice betray him, this is an inconsistent rule because it is loaded on that 2d6 dice roll. If you spike the dice, it is gut wrenching. Like it is absolutely slobber knocking. You can take out very powerful characters with it. You can deal a lot of wounds with it. It always works. There's no test for it. That's another thing about it. So like all of those things make it. There are some definitely feel badsy things to it, but it can be mitigated by playing anti-magic because it gets particularly reduced. Like it's particularly deadly when it's stacked with other rules. And also as an 8-inch range is another big deal. So whatever's doing the screaming gets danger close. I think that's why terror guys are less the preferred mode of delivery these days versus banshees, which are ethereal. And also way cheaper. So anyway, that is all to say that like I think when this first was like leaned into, it was a particularly big problem. It can feel overwhelming, just like Fanatics. But I think if you're aware of the danger and the things that make it particularly bad, I do think this isn't. I don't think this is a completely broken, overpowered, good God, why is this in the game rule? This isn't like rezzing, I don't know, Blood Knights to me, which is kind of wild.
Okay.
In the sense that it doesn't feel like that should happen. This I don't know. I give Wailing Dirge a very strong rating, not a broken AF rating.
I just think, like, ignoring the very strong rating, I just feel like a really positive step for this is just be like, by the way, why? Because it has like, very much like we talked about with like feelings, as. Because you very rightly, a year ago when we started doing all this, when we talked about the rule of three, you said it's about feelings, it's about impact on perception. And I think same with skirmishers, right? You're there trying your hardest to move your little 4 inches on your little giant lad unit of infantries. And Pegasus Knights are literally having like a full parade in the middle with like flotillas and explosions and fireworks and having fun. Like the feeling is like, what am I doing this for? Like you just like, and I feel like the Wailing Dirge could be knocked down. Don't let it do it into combat, something like that.
I think that particularly the biggest feel bad is that because it's it feels like a breath weapon. It should probably I feel like it should probably be restricted in the similar ways as a breath weapon. Maybe let it scream into the combat it's in. I think that's a fine restriction, but screaming into an active combat or out of an active combat into something nearby, which is wild. Those are things that I think are a bit lame. And also just are like, what? Why does it break the rules like that? The thing is too, though, that this is the way it has always been. As long as I think Wailing Dirge has basically not changed. Someone can light me up if that's wrong, but this I think is the way it was. And apparently, until they do a shadow update of vampire counts, forever will be.
Well, exactly. That's why in England we still got kids working in the coal mine. Never change. Once it's established. Right, Resurrecting the Fallen is the next rule. In a Vampire Count's army, it's possible to heal a unit by recovering lost wounds to resurrect the fallen warriors. Any characters that have joined the unit are healed because there's an order of operations. Characters have been reduced to 0 wounds, can't be brought back. Second models with more than 1 wound on their profile are healed. And next, unit champion is resurrected, displacing rank and file, followed by standard bearer musician. Finally, rank and file models are resurrected. Resurrected models are added to the front rank until it reaches minimum required to claim a rank bonus, after which additional models can be added to the front or rear rank. If the unit has already more than 1 rank models, it can only be added to the rear rank. A unit cannot be taken beyond its starting size. So that's Resurrecting the Fallen. So pretty cool. Nice order of operations. Nice to see that in there. You also gain access, if you're playing this army, to your own unique spell lore, the Lore of Undeath. And boy, are they good. They're some good spells. Some good spells.
I mean, there's 2 that are always taken. All 3 are very, very good. Very, very much worth our time. You want to? Shall we hit them up?
Yeah, definitely. First up, Van Hul's Danse Macabre, which is so good. Macabre. It's an enchantment with an 8 or a 12 to cast 2 different values, and it's cast at 12. If this spell is cast with a casting result of 8 or more, the target friendly unit gains a D3 plus modifier to one of the following characteristics, and it's either movement, weapon skill, or initiative. But if it's done to a maximum of 10, if the spell is cast with a casting result of 12 or more, the target unit gains 2 of those 2 modifiers plus D3 modifier. So either movement, weapon skill, or initiative can be improved by D3, either one of them or 2 of them. That's the result of that. You like this?
Obviously. Yeah, is it obvi good?
Obvi good.
Just excellent. However, I would say Hellish Vigor is probably the banger, because obviously a lot of your army can't march due to the undead rules. So this pay attention to this one. So this is range self. If the spell is cast with a casting result of 7 or more, a single friendly unit that has a necromantic undead special rule and is within the caster's command range.
Sorry, no, carry on.
Sorry. Command range. Gains the reserve move special rule. However, if this spell is cast with a casting result of 10 or more, very achievable, every friendly unit that has the necromantic undead special rule and is within the caster's command range gains the reserve move special rule. The spell lasts until the end of the turn. So that basically opens up a lot of movement for this army. Undead have always, because of rules like this, been sneaky fast, despite not being able to march. And Hellish Vigor in this edition is a good reason why. So that's probably the 1A of what I would swap out. Van Hal's 1B, and then Raised Dead. Still good.
Raised Dead's still good. I really like this for how you play in the game, but it's an enchantment, castle of 10, and then range 12 inches. Place a unit of 2d3 risen zombies on the battlefield anywhere completely within 12 inches of this model, but not within 1 inch of any models. This unit cannot declare a charge during the turn. But a summonable screen is nice.
Yeah, it's just cool. Also, just the idea of like a necromancer being like, blah, 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 and like a bunch of dead guys pop up from the ground. Very cool. Maybe that's the Total War Warhammer in me, but I love Raised Dead. I think it's very cool. And that the one thing about it too is that once it is raised, you can then start adding to that unit, as we'll learn how once we get to that rule.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so I think we can start to look at some of the... Normally we would look at the special items, but let's go look at the characters first, then we'll come back to items. I think that's the right order of operations for this book. Okay. For this book specifically.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about... first up, we'll talk about the three main characters, the Strigoi, the Necromancer, and the Vampire. I'm going to jump straight to the Necromancer, just so we can talk about how cool it is, and then we can start talking about the Vampire and try and shout out why the Vampires also could be good. Right?
Well, we'll do Necromancers and their obvious mount as well?
Yes, perfect. I'm super happy with that. All right, Necromancers. Do you want to take us through Necromancers, actually? I'm really happy with that.
Sure. Master Necromancer, that's the one, obviously, that you can get up to level 4, and the Necromantic Acolyte. Necromancer starts at 130 points. Standard thing. You can add 30 points to get to a level 4. All your standard equipment options, you can go up to 100 points of magic items. They may be mounted. They have Dark Vitality, Indomitable 1, Invocation of Nehek, Lore of Undeath, Necromantic Undead, and Regen 5 built in. Invocation of Nehek, this is the important one. During the command subphase of their turn, if they're not engaged in combat, this character may attempt to resurrect the fallen by making a leadership test using their own leadership. If this test is passed, a single friendly unit that has the Necromantic Undead special rule and is within 12 inches of this character recovers a number of lost wounds. However, magically repairing great undead beasts is much harder than raising zombies from the dirt. Therefore, how many wounds are recovered depends upon the unit's troop type and this character's level of wizardry. If the unit's troop type is regular infantry or heavy infantry, it recovers a number of wounds equal to the character's level of wizardry plus D3. So that would be a level 4, is able to res up to 7 of these models per turn on a good roll. Mm-hmm. If the unit's troop type is swarms or light cavalry or war beast, it recovers a number of wounds equal to this character's level of wizardry plus 1. Here's an interesting one. If the unit's troop type is monstrous infantry, heavy cavalry, monstrous cavalry, or light chariot, it recovers a number of wounds equal to this character's level of wizardry. If this unit's troop type is heavy chariot, monstrous creature, behemoth, or war machine, it recovers a single wound.
That's still fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, especially if the caster can heal himself or other characters around. But that second to last, the penultimate bullet point there, if the unit's troop type is monstrous infantry, heavy cavalry, which includes blood knights. So if you're level 4 and you're rezzing a unit of blood knights, you just slap 4 blood knights back on the table. One of the most expensive elite cavalry options in the game. So that means that you're getting up to 160 points of value ish. I think they're about 40 points each per turn that you're rezzing back, which is wild. Very, very good. Again, that one to me just feels like probably shouldn't happen like that. But nonetheless, it does, and it does make Blood Knights potentially very good cavalry, very good heavy cavalry, which is a bit rare in this game, and I don't mind that one bit.
I mean, it makes a unit good because it can come back to life. That's obviously insane.
It's basically giving them multiple wounds, so which is one of our wish list things.
We've wishlisted for that. Like, that's exactly what we want. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, and this is I do a lot of army reviews and have done a lot of army reviews over the years, and I haven't quite yet developed the language to explain this to people. But sometimes a book is, railroading is the right way to describe it, but oftentimes a book is telling you how it wants you to play. Not necessarily all of the time, and sometimes, like, a good example is, what we saw with the null denial, like the points denial list that we saw, like with Slayers. They were like, hey, do this. You can really lean into this, which I think is super cool. In this situation, this is like, by the way, you want a wizard. By the way, the only wizard that can be a level 4 is this guy. Also, you can make him a better wizard. Also, he can heal everyone in your army. And you're like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's it.
And also, ludonarratively, these armies are like, they're sourced, like the power comes from, they're raised literally by a powerful caster, right? So it's like, this is the equivalent of, the wizard sequence in Fantasia, like they are being conjured and driven forward by these things. So it makes sense to me that the caster would be a, essential core element of the army. And I feel like that's a cool element of vampire counts.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. It just feels maybe like a little bit, for people who are coming back from other editions, it feels like a little bit of a switch from your blender kind of like builds to because your blender was normally built around a vampire from everything I ever remembered, to be honest. Okay.
Yeah, you're running a blender vampire count, but that wasn't the only way to do it. And you can still do a blender vampire count. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, sure. As sure as in I agree, definitely. But yes, I feel like the Necromancer is like an auto. And then if we quickly go back up and look, if I had just a question to you, if I have 2 Necromancers, I can do Invocation twice or no?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
Okay, so I've got 2 Necromancers, I could do it twice. So then I think where it becomes a little bit, if you go up and look at the army list building, so you can have, per 1,000 points, you can have up to 1 Vampire Count Master Necromancer or Strigoi Ghoul King per 1,000 points. So then, if you're taking the Necromancer because you want to do the healing, then doubling down on the healing makes a lot of sense, especially as when we talk about this in a bit, there's a third way to double down on the healing and additional bonuses to have. So you can absolutely see why people were like, cool, I'm gonna bang that and go through that process. Okay, cool.
And also because Invocation of the Heck is not a casting ability, it's just an ability of the Necromancer and is based on their leadership. It's also why level 2s in this army aren't necessarily a mug's game. It's the one thing that maybe gives the corpse card a little bit of relevance to, just the ability to, add back 1 plus D3 to your bricks of zombies or what have you is good. So, for 75 points, that's just good. I mean, a Vampire Thrall at 75 points, without any upgrades is adding back, a 40-point Blood Knight potentially, or adding a wound to a couple 100-point monstrous creature. So Invocation to Heck, very, very good. In my experience, my very limited experience too, you want to have more than one source of it. It's just great. However, there's a mount that I think we should quickly talk to.
Oh, sure. Sure. Do you want to talk about the
Mortis Engine?
Mortis Engine. So this is one of the there's also the Coven Throne as a mount as well. No, or is that only for a vamp?
Yeah, I think that one's Coven Throne is a vampire thing. Also, patentedly, it's one of those situations where it's just patentedly worse and more expensive than a Mortis Engine.
Yeah, agreed.
We're going go down to page 17. You wanna give a read?
I'm there on the Mortis Engine. Sure. The Mortis Engine is a heavy chariot that's got a 4-up save. It's got toughness 5 with 5 wounds. It costs you about 195 points, not about, definitely. And it's got Dark Vitality, which means it's obviously going to be able to march. It's got First Charge, so it's going to reduce... first time it charges, it's going to take away any bonuses you got. Not any bonuses, but bonuses. It's got Fly, it's got Impact Hits, D6 plus 1, at Strength 5, which is nice. It's a large target. It has the Necromantic Undead keyword, which means you're going to be able to heal it. It's got random attacks on the Spirit Horde, sorry. It's got regen 6 up, and it does have that Wailing Dirge shooting attack, which we talked about earlier.
Sneaky Scream, yeah.
It's got a Sneaky Scream. But in addition, it's got 2 special rules. It's got the Accursed Reliquary. While within this model's command range, friendly units with the Necromantic Undead special rule gain a +1 modifier to their movement and initiative characteristics. And obviously, if this is a mount, because it's a large target for your general, it's going to be an 18-inch bubble for that, which is very big. And then it's also
as is your Invocation of Nehek was based on your command range as well. So it's 18 inches of range for doing your Back from the Deads.
Yep. And then Blasphemous Tome. All wizards, friend or foe, may apply +1 modifier to any casting roll whilst within this model's command range. However, if any wizard miscasts while within this model's command range, they must roll twice on the miscast table and apply both results. Which is kind of like positive, negative, ultimately. Normally, you end up taking...
if you're familiar with the miscast table, you don't care.
And also, like, sometimes you'll take a wound, but you also have the ability to heal in this, which is quite nice. So, like, most people don't have that. But yeah, you like this because... I mean, I know the answer, but I'm just letting everyone else know.
So, what a package for 200 points. You're giving your very important bubble-bound buffer, a 18-inch bubble, which is crazy. It's large target, so it can see over stuff. It can be used late game to jump into a combat and deal some damage that way. But that's all beside the point, because the Accursed Reliquary and Blasphemous Tome, what you'll notice is says, whilst in this model's command range, friendly units with the necromantic undead gain blah 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 blah. So it's not whilst within the command range of one or more, which would limit the buff to being one. Both of these options stack. So you have the ability to give more than +1 movement and more than +1 to your casting roll if you have multiples of the Mortis Engine. I think I saw in early goings people rocking out with 3 of them. 2 is probably a little more common, but it just creates this tower of power in your list that is just tremendously good at enhancing the abilities of your army. When you have, reserve move with the +1 move modifier, that's fantastic. So like it's just very good. It also adds tremendous resiliency to that very important caster general that you have, because obviously being toughness 5 with 8 wounds,
Mm-hmm.
I believe 8 wounds is very good. And you can heal those wounds, and you can layer saves on top of that. So yeah, the Mortis Engine is probably borderline must take for anyone rocking a Master Necromancer.
Feels like it's all must take, right? Like, that's so much healing, and then this is like, you must then do X. It's really hard to argue me away from this personally. Like, as someone who hasn't done tons of list building for this, but like, I think I have a pretty good command and idea of what it is. You like, as I was reading through it, because I've obviously read through it a couple of times past 2 days before we do this, I was like, I just don't know why I'm taking anything else. And this is fantastic.
On the bright side, it's also a kick-ass model. I think it's had play. It's had a lot of. It's a model that never really went away, right? Like it gets used in AOS, I assume.
It does.
Yeah, so like it's a kick-ass model. This was personally one of the models because I love this one because I think the rules are virtually identical to the way it was in the previous edition of the game, and I loved it in that edition of the game, and I'm so happy that it retained its key characteristics. One thing I would say that I would love to see, I think a very simple thing to do to this, and if they decide to leave the Renegades as they're written and don't give them any adjustments, I think a very simple thing we can do is just follow the lead of things that they've modified on Tomb Kings. We saw that with, the Casket. Basically just make it so that those abilities don't stack. And I think that's a very minor thing that you can do to just take some of, again, that like, feel bads off of it. Just make them not stack, and I think the Mortis Engine's sitting pretty.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so then if we keep talking about these heroes, we will go to the titular character of this book, the Vampire Count, or at least a Vampire Count or a Vampire Thrall. So like a pretty great stat line for 160 points. We've got toughness 5, we love that. 3 wounds. We've got 4 attacks, which is pretty good. Initiative 6, weapon skill 7, if we're talking about being like a combat character, and then move 6 when you got a foot 1. Obviously, various mounts, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I think where it gets like it maybe is a little bit upsetting. Not that it costs a lot of points, but equipment, just a base hand weapon. And if we wanted to make the vampire our general, immediately becomes a wizard, and that means no armor, which feels like a lot of the other profiles that it have are now a little bit lackluster because, you're not a very defensive melee character, which I feel is, obviously... bad. Dark magic, illusion, and necromancy are options for the magic choices, and then great weapon, additional hand weapon, and lance. If you get a mount, and then if you don't become a wizard, then you could have light armor, heavy armor, and if you do become a wizard, and this story gets really bad, you can only go up to level 2 instead of level 4.
Not really true, but yes, on this page you can only get up to level 2.
Yeah, you can only get up to level 3 in total. Yeah.
So there's vampiric powers, which I don't know where they are. We gotta go dig them up immediately. But there are basically vampiric powers you can give them, and one of them allows them to go up to a level 3 caster. Also can let them have Invocation of Nehek, so they can res things. But
not both, or both.
Oh, both. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
There's basically a budget on
100
vampiric
points.
powers. Yeah, 100 points. So you can really do what you used to do, which is just layer up all kinds of stuff on these guys. You can give them a ton of weapons. You can give them a bunch of vampiric powers that let them do extra cool stuff. Where the sadness is that essentially this is a whittling down of a very cool Bloodlines rule set that I think was a 6th edition thing. Anything I don't know the answer to, I just immediately just stash in like, oh, that must have been 6th edition. I'm pretty sure it was.
I also absolutely love our pure hatred for 7th, and we never reference it. We only ever reference 6th and 8th, and 7th to us is like an era never to be touched, like a dark place.
I mean, 7th arguably is what killed Warhammer Fantasy, but that's not because of the core rules. It's because I think of a lot of other rules, and it very well may have been the Vampire Counts Army Book in 7th that I'm referencing. Regardless, used to be able to like tune up your Strigoi, your Blood Knight vampires. There were different versions of vampires that you had. I can't remember them all, but they're all sort of different vibes of vampire, and unfortunately, they have taken some of those bloodline traits. In 8th edition, there was more of them, and some of them were clearly for, so your Blood Knights, some of them were clearly for your Strigoi, et cetera, et cetera. And they have sort of taken those, whittled down the options. So now there's nothing that's really combat focused, and that's where the Blender vampire count used to come from, was these vampire powers that gave them some really cool kill everything abilities. So you'd have this like just awesome combat hero, which you can't do really anymore. You can do a magical version of it, but you can't really do it in the way that you used to do it. So you can try and cram the square peg into the round hole, and I think some people have been doing it with some success. And basically, what I'm referring to is you make your vampire count a level 3 Lore of Illusion. If you really don't want to not get Doppelganger, which allows you to in combat roll 2d6 hits with whatever weapon you have. Then you also take a Lore Familiar, so you're guaranteed to get that. And then you throw on a sick weapon, Ogre Blade, if you're really going for it all, which is what I did. And I'll tell you, it was a lot of fun. However, because of things Rob said, and because you only have 100 points to spend on magical upgrades, and you need a lot of them, that also means that there's a chance your Vampire Lord is quite vulnerable. They're also flammable, dude. That's something I didn't pick up on until recently.
Yeah.
So flammability, not great. Means you're getting dealt extra damage by flaming weapons if you fail. So that's not great. And obviously you can't take your regen phase save against flammable against things. So anyway, I think there are ways to make these guys work, and I think there's some cool lists in the SBOT too. Check it out. That actually do have some cool vampire. I'm not sure if they're Thrall or Count builds, but there are ways to do it.
Yeah, we'll took at the Vampire Count special rules now, the ones that, not special rules, the upgrades you could take for Vampire specifically, which are the Vampiric powers. So like you said, with a Vampire, you got 100 points to spend. First one, the Curse of the Revenant is 50 points, and then you can add +1 to the Wounds characteristic of your Vampire. Beguile is 40 points. Oh, sorry, we should do these ordinary. Enemy units must make a leadership test before making any rolls to hit against Vampire. During the combat phase, if the test is failed, only rolls of natural 6 will hit, which is quite fun, but
Pretty
probably...
scary. in the battle report that just went live on Eric's hobby battle reports that I take part in from the summertime. Way to get editing there, Eric. I'm pretty sure he beguiles the shit out of me repeatedly. I can't remember if it's I've lost some battle reports multiple times to vampire counts, but it's either him or Lawrence that does it to me. So beguile, kind of a fun rule. I think there's better things to spend your points on, but it can work.
Do you want to do the next one?
Flying horror models whose troop type is infantry only. This vampire gains the fly 10 rule, but cannot join a unit.
I like that.
Points.
I like that. Like if my brain is already saying like, okay, I'm doing my 2 necromancers, I'm adding points to them, but can I just build like a little guy that's going to march 20 and be a dick? Like that's my question, and maybe is the answer.
Maybe, or for probably just a few more points, you could probably add a ton of wounds to them and fly.
Well, small bases. Small bases are genuinely valuable.
Yeah, sure.
Like that's what I was thinking. But anyway, yeah.
Yes.
Dark Acolyte is 30 points. The vampire gains the Invocation, the Hex special rule, so that's going to be bringing models back from the dead that we talked about, or healing people. And then for the purpose of using this special rule, this model counts as a level 1 wizard. So it's a way to add another Invocation, the Hex into your army, which is quite nice.
And then one here, 30 points. Don't know why they didn't just let them go to level 3, but all good. Instead, they have Master of the Black Arts. This vampiric power may only be taken by a vampire count that is a level 2 wizard, or by a vampire thrall as level 1 wizard. This vampire increases their level of wizardry by 1. It's a straight up upgrade to their levels.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, very good. Supernatural Horror, vampire gains terror special rule, which is whatever. You got Lord of the Night. During the command subphase of their turn, the vampire may attempt to resurrect fallen creatures of the night by making a leadership test. If this test passes a single friendly unit of fellbats, bat swarms, direwolves that's within 12 inches of the model recovers D6 lost wounds. Now, I quite like that a lot. Is this incredibly common? I feel like it must be, because like if I'm going to start stacking how much I can bring back, I'm going to add even more in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool too that it stacks with like if you were to take Dark Acolyte with this, that gives you 2 reses. This is a specific res, but not unlikely that you have direwolves and that they're out front of you with wherever your vampire is going to rip it up. One thing about adding res abilities to vampires though is that you probably want them in combat. So and you can't res from combat. So that would be one that's where I got to thinking you probably want your res ability guys to be behind the lines or somewhere a little more removed where they are less likely to get locked into combat. Yeah. That being said, still dope as hell. And I will point out that for whatever reason, these are all vampiric powers that Manfred von Karstein had in the previous version of the game, so you can build Manfred like he used to be, which is kind of interesting and funny. But yeah, we're missing a lot of really cool, badass vampire powers, and perhaps one day we'll get them back.
Yeah, there's a lot of width that these armies can go through narratively and add on to stuff. So it's fun. Anyway, big shout outs for those abilities. And then
there's actually one shout out I really wanted to make that I'd forgotten. That's a head scratcher, which is vampires are leadership 8.
Yes, I was going to come back to that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I especially vampire counts being leadership 8 is a strange nerf. Especially since they aren't doing that leadership-based stuff. Looking at it, I suspect it's because they didn't want the Master Necromancer to be leadership 9, because that would make them very, very strong based on all the abilities they have that are command roles. And then if a vampire count was leadership 9, it would have to be your general. I guess. Oh, no, it wouldn't, because they have that wizard rule. I don't understand why they're leadership 8. They got dropped to leadership 8 for some reason, and it's a little sad. But yeah, this army is low leadership, but don't worry, because their standard bearer allows you to reroll leadership tests. So,
It does. It's
old-fashioned banner.
Yeah, it's so confusing. Like, and it's so quite clearly, obviously, like geared towards, like, by the way, you should be taking the Necromancer. It's just what it screams to me. And like, if I was doing like, I've been doing some tier lists. Maybe I'll do a tier list after this, just for this book, and then just kind of showcase the way I think about stuff. I always think of stuff as effective. Like I always say, most effective, like effective. Like a vampire is effective, but it's not the most effective. You know,
I think we're comparing the Vampire Lord. Basically, where the Vampire Lord used to be is essentially now held by the Duke, you know, in Bretonia.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the sadness. The Vampire Lord by no means is a useless character. It's just not as badass as it once was, and I think that's the feelings I think we're having.
Yeah. And in this book, it's not as effective as a Necromancer, especially with what you can stack on a Necromancer. Just to Val's point, when you do have your BSB, you've got the Banner of the Count ability, which allows you to, so it changes up what Hold Your Ground normally does, and it changes it up to you can reroll failed leadership test. In addition, for any units with the Battle Standard Bearer's command range, reduce the number of wounds lost to the unstable rule by D3. So now we have the Indomitable special rule, reducing how many wounds you lose to unstable, and the Battle Standard Bearer is reducing down how many wounds you've got as well. So that's just something to be, that's something really to be conscious of, because now you're stacking how many wounds you're losing in combats, well, from unstable. And also we've got all this healing that we're doing as well in this book as well. So it's just really genuinely very fantastic, which I really like. So yeah, that's good. And then we're going to jump down to the Strigoi Ghoul King. Or maybe we should talk about the mounts you could take for the vampire. I should probably mention that as well.
Yes, please. Yes.
So we'll go do that in a moment. Yes, where am I? I think the mounts start on one of the pages, and I apologize if
they follow the characters. So you have Skeletal Steed, which I believe. So a vampire count can be on a Nightmare, Coven Throne, Abyssal Terror, or Zombie Dragon, and at least 3 of those are very, very useful. So the Nightmare is essentially a big warhorse. Allows them to go in with the Blood Knights, countercharge, first charge, Necromantic Undead, and Swift Stride. Not bad. And then something I think that immediately got overlooked, and I've noticed people are taking, and is a decent thing to consider after that, would be the Abyssal Terror. Which is a mount option that is 120 points, +1 toughness, +4 wounds, and it has close order, large target, necromantic undead, stomp attacks D3, swift side, terror, wicked claws, poisonous tail, and scaly skin. Counts as heavy armor. But I think what makes this particularly good is that it's just sort of a cheaper, smaller mount for him that's not the zombie dragon, gives him more wounds, and is a monstrous creature on a 50 by 100. So yeah, it's more like it's basically like going with a wyvern instead of going with a dragon.
Yes, yeah, which I don't think is like a bad shout. Like if you're not trying to build like the absolute, like, it depends what your target is, right? Because I think when you go in dragon, you're like, cool, I'm trying to fight the other dragons. Like that's what I'm trying to do. When you go the other way, you're like, okay, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to avoid those. I'm trying to be fast, and I'm trying to hit some of the other units, which I think is effective.
Yeah, I just, he's a pretty good combat character as is. When you go to the zombie dragon, which is now you're at 215 points, so significantly more points. You're only getting 1 extra wound for that. You do get the dragon's 5 attacks and his D6 stomps and things like that. But now you're also on 100 by 150 millimeter base, which is, twice as wide. It's big. It's just a higher points investment for not a lot more resilience. And again, resilience is one of those question mark things. So yeah, I can definitely see how the Abyssal Terrors come in. One reason why I overlooked it straight up is that I hate this model. It's perhaps the derpiest, dumbest model that's ever been made by a Games Workshop.
It is fugly. It is fugly.
So definitely worth looking at your 3D print options for Abyssal Terrors, unless you, of course, have a fondness for it. I'm sure there are some weirdos out there with an Abyssal Terror fetish. But yeah, and there's probably also other things I'm overlooking about this. Why this has become a chosen thing. Fly 9, I think, is also a little bit better than the Zombie Dragon. Am I crazy?
Or the Abyssal Terror.
No, it's not. They're both Fly 9. Yes, the Abyssal Terror.
I mean, it's cheap. It's 120 points. That's cheap.
Yeah, and you're getting 4 wounds for that. Remember, 50 points a wound to do that with a vampiric power. Yeah. And it flies. 35 points to do that with a vampiric power. So immediately, you're getting.
Can you stick the vampire? Can you stick the vampiric powers or infantry only? The vampiric powers for the +1 to its wound characteristic. No, you can add that as well if you want to.
Sure, you could. At that point, then you're probably thinking zombie dragon. Though, I'm just saying, this is the mounts are more efficient ways to get some of those powers, as are casting. If you just wanted a vampire to go terrorize your opponent, you can use the Lore of Necromancy spell to give him fly and ethereal. And now he's harder to kill and can fly. And it's a remains in play that you can hide from your opponent. So there's just that's one part of the reason why some of those vampiric powers feel very redundant, and I wish that they were the combat powers instead. 50 points for some of the shit that you used to be able to do with vampiric powers, I would be down to pay. But anyway, that's just wish listing. So some good mount options that give the Vampire Lord or a Thrall some options is all I'm saying.
It's super fair thing to say. All right, so a bunch of different mounts available for the Vamp, but either way, it feels like the Vamp is second fiddle to the Necro, and then we got the Strigoi Ghoul King, Ghoul King. Which, base stat line, 145 points, strength 5, toughness 5, 3 wounds, 5 attacks in combat, pretty good. Weapon skill 6, can be a wizard, but again, only up to level 2. If it's a wizard, no armor for it. And then it's got poisoned attacks and regen and the hunger, its own special rule. At the end of the combat phase in which the character inflicted 1 or more unsaved wound, roll a d6 and roll a 6, character recovers a single wound. However, so great is this character's hunger that whenever they or a unit they've joined make a pursuit roll, you only roll a d6, which is obviously a big old negative. There's very few opportunities in the game to run down and wipe out loads of points. And then reducing how many times you can do that feels like a lot to give up for sometimes you'll get a wound back on a 6. I would say that's very bad. Poison attacks is nice, I agree. It's got Indomitable 1 and Hatred all enemies. So you could tool this bad boy up to do some fighting. But can't take as many vampiric powers, only 75 points. Can't take as many magic items, only 75 points. So not quite as effective as a vamp. And I think all the negatives a vamp has, but worse.
I think that you can put this guy on a Terrorgeist, so that's one of the reasons why you would do it.
Yes.
If you wanted to have a Terrorgeist and, I don't know, Blood Knights or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It does get spendy, but that's one reason why you would do it. You probably don't make this guy a caster. Things like I don't know, 5 attacks base, pretty dope. Not gonna lie, I think that's still quite good. Hatred everything, very good. I don't know. I think that this is one of those I want to take a Strigoi Ghoul King situations because it is, you're right. I think strictly speaking, a worse vampire, but I don't think it's a useless vampire. I wouldn't say that he's untakeable. But this is something that you probably want to take. He's not best in slot. I would give him that.
Yeah. I don't think he's the one. Talking about the one, not Cairn Wraiths. We've got Cairn Wraiths, and they are a 50-point little character, and they are ethereal. They got Indomitable 1, Necromantic Undead, Regeneration, and Terror. And then they do have 2 attacks. At strength as a user, but their magical attacks to do multiple wounds D3. Who doesn't want to?
And no armor save permitted against it. Yeah. 50 points for a very annoying ethereal character. I mean, all I would say about Karen Wraith is they are eclipsed massively by Banshees. Just because Banshees have Wailing Dirge, cheapest option for getting Wailing Dirge, which we've covered. The Karen Wraith used to be a really awesome thing to stash in units because you could charge out of units. So you could use it to like run out in front of you and like hold up a unit that didn't have a magical weapon. You probably still maybe use it in that scenario, but a Banshee does that better, I would think. So yeah, Karen Wraith's probably relegated to the guy riding the black coach for those people who can't resist taking a black coach.
100%. And then, like you say, those Tomb Banshees, the cheapest way to get our big screamy shooting attack, which can just infinitely, like it could just wipe some of the most expensive models in the game.
Yep, 90 points to have that ability. Again, you use the magical spell to give it double ethereal, which does nothing, but fly. And you suddenly have a very small base that can get into places that are hard for them to be, counterattacked, and they're ethereal. They're fantastic, old Tomb Banshees. Definitely look at taking those. There's also whites.
There is also whites. I wasn't skipping them. I just thought as we were there, we should do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got whites. You got White King and a White Lord, 85 and 50. So these are like your skeleton leaders. The White King is toughness 5 with 3 wounds and 3 attacks for 85 points. It's bargain. Absolute bargain. I'll take that. Heavy armor comes included. Oh, this is nice. Get some car seats in there. And then you can take a shield, can be mounted. Can have a White King can have 100 points of magic items. So don't.
He's a king.
He's a king. He's a king. And then it's got Indomitable, Killing Blow. Is undead, necromantic undead, and has got regeneration. And he's got the white banner. Same thing for the white banner. If you do decide to go for a white lord and go for a BSB, they do that same thing where they reduce the unstable down by D3, and you get to reroll your leadership tests. White King,
as Rob was saying too, they also they don't have sorry, the white lord is the one with. Hold on, White King has Indomitable, but
yeah, but does not.
Why not the white lord? Got it.
And the white lord would be your BSB.
I'm North American. I get lords and kings mixed up. Like it's hard for me to know who's on the org chart higher. I don't know.
Oh, imagine how I feel about barons and dukes. It's a toughie.
it's a tricky one. But yeah, white's definitely certainly white lords. Going to be a common person holding that banner. Again, allowing you to reroll all them leadership tests. Super nice. For things like your necromancers, which do a lot of leadership tests. And then that minus D3 is actually something I completely overlooked when I didn't take one. That's a super, super handy ability, especially when you're stacking it with other things that have Indomitable.
It's very, very effective, I would say. It feels like you can really get a lot of ignoring. It feels very good. The numbers, in my head, sounds crazy.
I've run into that rule playing Tomb Kings and playing against Tomb Kings, and it was soul crushing when I was like, oh, yes, I did everything right. I got them. Now I'm going to make them crumble. And they were like, and I lose one guy. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah. All right. So those are our characters. Now we've done our characters, I think it's time for us to go and jump and talk about the equipment that you can give characters or units because we're down here. But definitely feels like the units you see a lot are the units that you're basically told to take in the rules. Okay, magic weapons, Val's favorite format coming soon from the Honest Wargamer, from Square Base Show, sorry. Vampiric counts, magic items. The most expensive magic weapon, the Frostblade, 60 points. It's got Killing Blow and magical attacks. That's what it does. Strength as user, 60 points.
However, any model that suffers one or more unsaved wounds from the Frostblade must immediately take a toughness test. If this test has failed, they gain the strike last special rule and reduce their initiative characteristic to 1 for the remainder of the game. That's actually pretty dope. But for 60 points, I mean, as far as an expensive dumb magic weapon goes, unfortunately, a bit of a womp womp on this one. Bit of a. But that's okay. That's okay. The Sword of Kings.
The Sword of Kings, go for it.
+1 strength, -1 AP, killing blow, magical attacks seems to be a theme. The wielder of the Sword of Kings strikes killing blow if they roll a natural 5 or 6 when making a roll to wound rather than the usual 6. That's just better. That is just better.
That's just better. That's
I'm already house ruling my house rule formats. Vampire counts may take the Sword of Kings instead of the Frostblade. Also, it's the Sword of Kings. Clearly, that's the top weapon.
That's
over to Blood Drinker.
Blood Drinker is. I would like everyone to know my name is not Blood Drinker. It's 45 points. It's -1 AP, magical attack, strength as user. If the wielder of Blood Drinker causes one or more unsafe wounds during combat phase, they recover a single lost wound. Infinitely better than the Strigoi special rule, which feels like the reason you take the Strigoi with no negatives for 45 points. Brilliant.
Maybe you take a Strigoi with Blood Drinker, the Dreadlance. Strength +2, AP -2, Armor Bane 1, magical attacks. Models troop types is cavalry or monster only. The Dreadlance can only be used during a turn in which the wielder charge. Subsequent turns, this model must use a hand weapon instead. The wielder of the Dreadlance may re-roll any failed rolls to hit made whilst using it. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I thought a little bit about the Dreadlance when I was making my Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. And I'm still not sure it's a bad choice. Tell me why I'm stupid. Because you're getting in there, you're casting that doppelganger, that +2 strength, -2 AP with Armor Bane.
Wow.
Pretty dope. You don't have to reroll to hit on that, but then when you do get your regular attacks, the rerolls to hit are really, really clutch and important. I kind of like it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like it too. The Dreadlance I like. I like Blood Drinker as well. I think that's fine if you're going that way. Magic Armor. Got two options. We've got the Flayed Hwabuk, which is 35 points. The Flayed, it gives you a suit of heavy armor, which may be worn by a wizard, without any penalty. So there's a secret way of getting our vamp wizard with a suit of armor. In addition, its wearer has a 6-up ward save against any wounds suffered. You won't be able to then give them other types of armor because this specific item gives you it and not other bits as well. Like, for instance, you could take a shield with this.
Why can't you take a shield with it?
Because you can't have it. Can you have a shield as a wizard?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess not. Yeah, so you just get the heavy armor. So if you're on a mount, like Abyssal Terror gives you a 5-up and the Zombie Draven gives you a 4-up. So probably I see this is probably more for that mythical foot vampire or mounted vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can already have...
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to take a shield. You're right.
Yeah, okay. Then you got the... after you, the accursed armor. What I'm saying is I'm taking a Necromancer anyway, so I don't need this.
Yeah, and you're probably giving your Necromancer the accursed armor. Models whose troop type is infantry or cavalry only. The accursed armor is a suit of full plate armor. In addition, the wearer has a... Oh, sorry, this is not what you give your Necromancer.
Yeah.
In addition, its wearer has a +1 modifier to their toughness characteristic, but suffers a -1 modifier to the weapon skill and initiative characteristics to a minimum of 1.
Yeah, so
probably what you're giving your White Lord.
Yeah, probably your White Lord. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, +1 to your toughness is vibes. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love that
and
a lot.
Full plate. Full plate is also sick.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, then talismans. You got the Von Carsteiner Ring, which is 40 points. Vampires only, single use. When the wearer of the Von Carsteiner Ring loses the last wound, roll d6 on a 2+. The wound is not lost. So that's fun. You could build yourself a character that goes in, and then on a 2-up, it's not going to lose its last wound. That's cool.
Oh, it's single. Oh, man, I read right past single use. In my head, I was like, ooh, man, if you had a hot hand with this, that'd be dope. But it's single use. So, no, thank you.
But this with the Blood Drinker, I should die 2-up, didn't die, heal a wound, start healing back. Woohoo! I'm curious. So when the wearer of the Von Carsteiner Ring loses their last, so let's say you have you got 1 wound left and they've dealt 4 wounds to you, and so that 1 wound is lost. It's your last wound. You roll a 2-up. Do you still have to deal with the other 2 wounds? Probably yes. Yeah, I assume yes. In other game systems, normally I would say, and then all other damage is negated, is normally what they do. But normally wound pools are just allocated individually, so you go sequentially, because we normally do fast rolling versus slow rolling. So you would slow roll this, and yes, you would lose. You would keep taking them. Maybe not perfect.
Love a slow roll myself. Crown of the Damned. The Crown of the Damned gives away a 4+ ward save. This is the one I was thinking of. Against any wounds suffered.
Whoa.
However, due to the wailing spirits trapped within the crown, its wearer is also subject to the stupidity special rule. That doesn't matter, guys. Stupidity, doesn't matter. You can still cast. Essentially, what it does is it makes you stumble forward. If as long as you're behind a big brick of zombies, you don't really stumble forward that far. So you don't even really wind up out of position or in situations that are dangerous. Even if you don't have a banner, a BSB around to help you re-roll this, it's still very easy to not care. So Crown of the Damned, really, really great way to give your Mortis Engine General a 4+ ward save.
Yes, I think that's and that's exactly what they needed was a 4+ ward save. I was confused. I was worried that they might not get a 4+ ward save on top of all the healing.
That's why we're diving deep.
Big thumb. That Demon Prince, just like with that like rope around his neck, it's like, you guys get indomitable? Like, what the hell? Like, I've got the 4+ ward. What the heck? Right, Magic Standards, Banner of the Burrows is 65 points. White Lord Battle Standard Bearer only. During the combat phase, when a unit carrying the Banner of the Burrows makes a roll to hit, on it roll 3+ is all success, regardless of the target's weapon skill. So that's pretty nice when a unit carrying the Banner of the Burrows. So that you always hit on a 3+ is very effective for 65 points. I like that.
For a unit that basically can come back indefinitely and has cleaving blow, we're talking about Graveguard. It's a great like core central brick for your army. Graveguard, one of those infantry units that has a use case, and Banner of the Burrows is potentially one of those things. Of course, at 65 points, probably reserved for a unit that is large. So, has width, is going to be dealing a lot of attacks. That's kind of an important thing for Banner of the Burrows. Otherwise, you're not going to get your value from it.
No. Next banner?
The Drakenhof Banner. If a unit carrying the Drakenhof Banner has the Regen X special rule, it improves its armor value of its regeneration save by 1. Oh, wow. They hid the riddle, the answer to the riddle of, before they fact it, whether or not armor value, referred to all armor values or not. There you go. Armor value of its regen save specifically by 1. Sure, perfectly cromulent. 50 points though.
But I mean,
probably just want to spend money on.
Go on.
Just spend points on things that come back from the dead.
Yeah, but like I don't mind having regen 5+. Like, that's a 5. Sure. I like because I'm already like healing, ignoring, resin. Why don't I ignore more? Res more? Who knows? Infinite. How do you kill this army? What the fuck? Like,
it's hard. It's definitely hard. Sometimes I look up after playing an undead army and I'm like, all right, so how many points did I get? 0? Oh, cool.
Cool. I'm sure I killed a load of guys. Yeah.
It felt productive. So Screaming Banner, I don't know who's reading, but I'm going for it. When an enemy unit makes a leadership test due to fear caused by a unit carrying the Screaming Banner, it must roll an extra d6 and discard the lowest result.
That's
okay.
Okay, whatever. And then Standard Hellish Figure is 40 points. Unit carrying Standard Hellish Figure gains the reserve move special rule, which is an additional move in the shooting phase.
So, yeah, and I mean, cool to have it baked in automatically. But again, 40 points, you can just have a low-level Necromancer Thrall with Hellish Vigor and do that in a casting bubble instead.
Okay, so enchanted items, you've got the Helm of Commandment, which is 40 points. Necromancers and whites only, so Necromancer. During the command sub-phase of their turn, this character may attempt to enhance the sentience of those around them, making a leadership test. If the test is passed until the start of next turn sub-phase, this character and the weapon they have joined gains plus D3 modifier to their weapon skill to a maximum of 10, which obviously is very funny if you stack this with Von Halsdon's Macabre, because you could be adding 2D3 to a unit's weapon skill, which would be very fun.
You could be hitting something with 2s using zombies, which is funny.
Yeah, that is genuinely funny.
Necromancers only. The Hand of Dust is 35 points. This model can cast the following bound spell with a power level of 2. Roll a d6 each time the Hand of Dust is used. On a roll of 1, it crumbles to dust and cannot be used again. All right, what does it do?
I was saying, ooh, that's good.
Ooh. Casting value 9+. So that means you need a 7 to get this off. The target enemy unit suffers 2d6 strength 5 hits, each with an AP of 1. All right. Necromancers only.
Yeah.
I mean,
2d6 strength 5 is high.
I mean, this is a fun one. At least it's fun. I would give it that.
Yeah, okay.
I will give you that it is fun.
Cloak of Mist Shadows, 30 points. Necromancer whose true type is infantry only. The wearer of the Cloak of Mist Shadows gains the ethereal special rule. I like that. I was looking at them cheeky hex wraiths, and I was like, stack ethereal to the moon and back, and to the moon again. And I'm sure people have, but I just think that's got to be way too good. All right, Arcade.
It's the same. It's the same story as always been with ethereal. It works until it doesn't, and then it really doesn't. So like basically, your win condition is, do they have magical attacks? If you're playing Warriors of Chaos, for example, or demons, they do. Maybe some other examples have large amounts of magical attacks in the army. So yeah, but ethereal is definitely very good like impossible, like stupid good situationally.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're going to arcane items. We've got a Skull Staff, which is 50 points. The bearer of the Skull Staff increases their dispel range by 3 inches, buddy. While attempting Wizardly Dispel, they may apply a +1 modifier to their dispel as well.
Okay, yeah, that's very good. So a +1 to your dispel, very good. That gives you equal dispel power, essentially, to casting power if it's on a level 4. And also the extended dispel range, very, very, very good. So yeah, I'd say Skull Staff is great, but it's going to be competing for the following thing: the Scepter of de Noiro. Also, Scepter of de Noiro, I'm pretty sure, is redundant. I think Scepter de Noiro would do just fine. 35 points. The bearer, the Scepter of de Noiro, of Noiro. Anyway, the bearer of the Scepter of de Noiro may attempt to resurrect the fallen by using the invocation of a hex special rule twice during their command subphase, rather than usual 1. Roll a d6 each time the scepter is used. On a roll of 1, the bearer loses a single wound.
So now I've got 2 necromancers and the Scepter of Naro, and I'm doing it, and I'm doing invocation 3 times.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I do anything else? Like, you literally can't convince me to do anything else at all.
Well, don't look at my ringer list for the ASBOTO then. Fine.
I apologize.
Well familiar. Just move on. Scepter of Noro, very good. Go ahead, Rob.
No, it's not very good. It's fucking insane. Like, sorry, not to swear. I apologize. If you listen to this at work, you're like, why is that British man shouting at me?
That's the first time in the history of our 4 years of podcasting you've ever apologized for swearing.
I know. I
don't know why. All of a sudden, years of guilt has just come crashing back.
I'm just thinking, like, why is he shouting at me? Because we've got, like, when you go through these, you're like, handed us, yeah, whatever. I'd like to point out, Scepter did not. Oh, like, also, it's of twice. I hate that. But also, it's so good. Like, it's so good. Like, why are we skipping over it because it's so obviously good? You don't want to bang on about how good it is.
Well, it's very good. It's very, very, very good. It is probably 1A enchanted item choice. This with the Crown of the Damned. Those are going to be very commonly taken on your general Master Necromancer on a Mortis engine.
Okay. All right.
Definitely pretty obvi. Pretty obvi.
Yeah. Pretty.
The last one, though, also something you're probably taking, is the Spell Familiar. Different than Lore Familiar. And it's 0-1 per wizard. Owner of a Spell Familiar knows one more spell chosen the usual way than is normal for their level of wizardry. Note that this does not increase the wizard's level. That's fine. The Mortis engine does that. At least it gives a +1 to cast anyway. So friggin' fantastic. This allows you to get away without taking a Lore Familiar necessarily on your level 4 caster. Although you're still probably going to wind up not getting that one spell you want from Necromancy. Occasionally, it does reduce the odds quite spectacularly. And it's only 15 points, and it's a common item, so you can take it on every caster you have, and you have lots of casters. So also a very awesome item. Really, really caught up with some bangers there at the end. Not that they didn't have good items, but some really, really good ones in this list.
Yeah, the magic weapons are a bit like whatever. They were like, what if everything was insanely good?
What if they were all good?
Well, it's all good. All right, let's go start looking at some units, shall we? Okay, so now we're going to start talking about the units that you can take. So first up, because it's just the one that's come up in order, is Graveguard. This isn't a core choice. This is a special choice. We probably should do core. All right, we'll do core. Fuck it. Skeleton Warriors.
Well, no, Graveguard can be core if you're taking a White Lord.
Yes, Graveguard can be core if you're taking a White Lord. That's true.
Yes.
So they are toughness 4, strength 4, initiative 3 of all things, which is pretty funny. 11 points a model. Heavy armor and shields for these guys. They got cleaving blow, which is that 6 is to wound against infantry, heavy infantry, cavalry, heavy cavalry. Indomitable 1, necromantic, undead, and regen. So you're gonna be able to bring a fucking shit ton of these back if you want to. 11 points a model. They do have hand weapon and shields. You can, if you want, have great weapons.
Which you will every time.
Why would you every time?
Why would you every time? Because that will make them strength 6 with no armor saves allowed when you spike a 6. And that's very good.
It's very good, especially if you wanted to. You could go for that, like, the initiative bonus from Van Hans. But Macabre, plus a charge.
That's true, because that's true, and then you'd be buffing their initiative value up from 1, so they could still be initiative 4 with a great weapon.
That's a vibe,
which is a vibe.
And on the charge, initiative 7 with a great weapon.
With a great weapon. I have infantry though, so let's not get too excited about those charges, people.
Slow down, peeps. Yeah, just relax. It can be drilled. They can have a magic standard, and they got the implacable defense special rule where they can not give ground unless they're double outnumbered. But that's if they've got a shield. So if you go that way, but the fact they got regen, they can have a magic standard up to 50 points. That means I think they could get a 5 up regen on them.
You know, and that's not bad. And honestly, yeah, I don't know. That might be better value just because it keeps guys in the fighting rank rather than the 3s to hit. You know, like, so you would be maintaining your combat power by saving more of them. Maybe I'm being sold on upping their regen beyond that. Drilled for 2 points per model feels a little much, but again, as I noted before, you have much fewer opportunities to reform on Fabagos. Fallbacks in good order. So having drilled on these guys, not a bad thing. Just because when you do make a move, you can change your frontage.
And stronger than a dwarf.
Yeah, strength 4.
Huge news. Huge.
They're dope. They're very good.
And don't I also bring back? Am I wrong in thinking that I bring back like 70 of them if one dies or something? Can't I bring back like 8 billion?
You're bringing up to 7 of them back from a level 4.
What? Can I do it 3 times?
Yeah. Yeah.
So 21.
Yeah. I mean, that's a hot roll, but yes.
Why don't people just take a block of 50 so their wounds dense enough?
Maybe they will start because we're starting to see those very, very large Death Stars. Perhaps there's a version of that we can see come from these guys. We'll see.
All right, so then we've got Skeleton Warriors next up. So these are this is the same kind of thing. This is a regular infantry, but these are strength and toughness 3. They've only got light armor and shields. I mean, only that's pretty good. And they got regen 6 up, and again, you can bring them back to life. They're only weapon skill 2 though. So not great.
Yeah, but you can buff weapon skill if that matters to you. The only problem Skeleton Warriors have is that zombies exist because they're 3 points, basically do the same shit.
Okay.
And can be rezzed beyond their starting unit size because of newly dead. Zombies forever the brick of infantry that
you just get stuck on.
Vampire counts will get used. Skeleton Warriors, though, still, I mean, not bad. just not
5
best
points a
with slot.
model. Yeah, 5 points a model. But yeah, if you're looking, because you're looking at an anvil unit, right? Like with the Graveguard, they're more of a brawler unit, or that's how I describe them. So like, they'll go toe to toe with other units and they'll hit back. Skeleton Warriors and the zombies aren't necessarily doing any hit back. They're just there forever.
Yeah, skeleton warriors and zombies do the same job, which is get in the way and die. Zombies do that for cheaper and can also be far more difficult to actually get off the table. If you want a skeleton that can hit stuff, go get yourself some Graveguard.
But unfortunately, obviously, don't get the old Graveguard because they look fugly. So do something else. Get some other models.
Actually, even just the basic AOS skeletons
look great.
Now they look great. I don't know if you can give them a great weapon though.
You can't. They've just got spears and hand weapons, I think. Maybe only spears.
But they have a ton of armor, so like they kind of have a Graveguard feel to them.
Little shout out to Total War. Total War's patch notes today. They just released Graveguard with spears. So pretty fun. Because previously they didn't have Graveguard with whatever. All right, so next up we got Crypt.
You mean skeletons with spears?
No, I mean Graveguard with spears.
Because that's not a thing in Warhammer. That's weird.
Yeah, they've given them the option.
Huh, neat. Yeah. Crypt Ghouls.
Crypt Ghouls.
Crypt Ghouls can take a unit champion, which is key. Something we haven't talked about because we've never actually dove the other undead, the dry undead.
Yeah.
Tomb Kings.
The dries.
Is that the first thing that's always brought back to life when you res a unit is your unit champion.
Yes.
So you can challenge and then res back your champion, challenge and res back your champion. These are great tar pits for things like dragons.
It's actually very funny. It's actually very funny. I love that.
Something actually that skeletons have that zombies don't. Zombies don't have the ability to take unit champions. Skeletons do. So there's one tick for the skeleton unit. Crypt Ghouls, though, they have the ghast. Crypt Ghouls, I think, are excellent. I think they are an excellent choice because they have poisoned attacks, regen 6. They reserve move inherently, so they don't need to be within range of that. They're skirmishers, which, again, is very, very good. They have moved through cover, so they're not slowing down. And if you do have them ranked up, they do get open orders. So they have a free pivot. If they just, if they move their 5, they can pivot. Then they reserve move. They can pivot again. They're incredibly flexible unit. Love Crypt Ghouls. I think they're a overlooked secret sauce. A very nice infantry unit. And movement 5 base, which is great. 6 when they're near a mortis engine.
And 2 attacks each. 2 attacks each.
Oh, sorry, and then I didn't even say the big thing. 2 attacks each. You don't see that.
No.
Like 2 attacks on a like that is just very good.
You're paying like 22 points for a Chaos Chosen Warrior for 2 attacks. Like, yeah. I would actually take 9.2 attack poison attacks over Warriors all day. And I can bring them back. Oh my God, that's dumb. That's so good. Okay.
They're very good. They're very, very good.
And
they're 2 points less than the Graveguard. They do have a different type of role. Crypt Ghouls are great. In the list that Oz put together for me, Shane, shout out. He had a Crypt Ghouls, and I was like, oh, really? And it felt like he gave me permission to follow what I thought, which was these guys are pretty good. One thing about them in the old edition, 8th, is that they lost Skirmish, I think. So having Skirmish back is cool. I might be actually confusing them with Dryads. Ignore what I just said. Continuing.
Crypt Horrors. So Crypt Horrors are a monstrous infantry choice. Everyone knows that I am monstrous infantry pilled. And they are, you start as a unit of 3. There's toughness 5 with 3 wounds apiece for 46 points. 3 attacks each. Weapon skill 3 is maybe the sad bit. Move 6. And then they've got Indomitable 1, move through cover. They have Necromantic Undead as well. They've got a regen 6 up, and they got a 1 stonk attack. I'm going to call it that now, a stonk attack.
What's their armor save?
Armor save is nothing.
Yeah, 46 points, no armor save, a regen 6+. I think we can move on.
I mean, we could, like, it makes them about 15 point a wound, which, like, yes, is a little bit like OTT, but I still think, like, you have to go in, even if you had a minimum of 3, like, you got to go in, you got to do 9 wounds to clear it before they hit you back, right? Like, that's all. I'm always going to be a monstrous stan. Even these, I think, could work. There'll be a small little, 3 40 mil wide, charging in a flank. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I guess
you're right.
As
you're
someone
right.
who constantly says, if you like something, you can make them work. These are not okay. Perhaps the womp womp sound was overstated. I think they're just a bit expensive for what they are.
Agreed.
And they also are overshadowed by their flappy winged brethren, the Varghests.
Yeah, which we'll go to. Bat swarms, shout it out. Do you want to talk to us about bat swarms?
Sure. Bat swarms are swarms on 40 millimeter bases. They're 39 points per base, weapon skill 3, 5 wounds, 5 attacks. They have fly 7 and regen 6 and are skirmishers. One issue I have with these guys is their unit size is a minimum of 3+. So that means that they're coming in just under 117 points per unit, which makes them a little bit too rich for my blood. You're probably better served going to the big version of bats than these guys, the fell bats. But yeah, I think, bat swarms, probably a pass. Also, swarms themselves.
Generally a pass.
Yeah, generally a pass, which is strange because they seem like they should be better, but they're not. So there you go.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Varghests. Now here we go. Now we're going. Nice monsters infantry. These are fly 9 to start us off with frenzy. They do have Necromantic Undead regen, and they're also skirmishers. 360 line of sight frenzy. Let's go. Armor Bane 2, motherfuckers. And they are also AP2 with their Strength 5, 3 attacks piece. Oh my god, 61 points though. These are expensive.
They're spendy. So you're 183 points for 3 of them. But I mean, just as unsurvivable, way more likely to get there, have more attacks. They have dark vitality too, so they can march with their fly 9. They are, I don't know. They strike me as, again, one of those things where if you want to bring them, they're good. Probably a bit spendy because they have so little resilience. But if you can find a way to make them a either hard to hit or something that's maybe going to go harass in the back ranks, these are something that can freelance that in a way that other units in the army can't, because they aren't really tied to being close to the caster. Anyway, so as you can hear, I really want to like Vargheists. I just think they're pretty beefy.
Yeah, they got flammable, obviously sad news. Yeah, and frenzy tough to manage some of the times. But yeah, like I can see this absolutely. I'm again monstrous infantry build, so I would run these. I would run a couple of units of these actually in 3s or 4s, and just be a terror. And I think that would be a vibe, especially when everything else is so fucking cheap.
Yeah, and like the fly 9 skirmishers, is a bit of a. It is because they also don't have an open order option, but the fly 9 skirmishers is good if you can find ways to like park them behind something where they can't see and then charge off. You have to be able to control them with frenzy, so it does make them a bit tricky, but they are incredibly fast and can get out of the way. So I think there's play here with these guys. They just strike me as pretty good. Strength 5 base.
AP2 Armor Bane is so good. Armor Bane 2.
Bad.
Armor Bane 2, so it'd be AP4.
Yeah.
All right, so Fellbats are next. Fellbats.
Fellbats.
Monstrous Infantry, the Fellbats, 15 points. Talk to me about Fellbats. What do you think?
So, in comparison to regular bats, you got 2 wounds per model on these guys. They're also on 40s. They have 2 attacks each. They have Fly 10, Necromantic Undead, Regeneration 6+ Skirmishers, and Swift Stride. That's pretty cool. So they can go faster, they can go farther. These guys were once upon a time Great War Machine Hunters. Maybe we see the need for that come back. But at 15 points per model, you're at 7.5 points of wound, which I think makes them, I don't know what 39, but I think that makes them almost the same points per wound as a Bat Swarm. With just maybe slightly less attack output, maybe not even. So yeah, I think Fellbats, if you need that sort of fast harasser that's cheap, you can get one of these. You can get a unit of this for 45 points. That's pretty good. So I would say Fellbats, if this is a unit style or a unit role that you want, I like Fellbats a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you could also, Danny on Danny on a favorite podcast of mine whose name I hate and I can never remember it.
Old Town Charm?
Old World Charmed. Thank you. He proposed a just enormous unit of fell bats. Like, just take this unit and make it absolutely enormous. And I thought that was a hilarious idea. And maybe someone out there will be bold enough to do it.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Spirit hosts. We've got a toughness 3, 4 wound spirit host for 49 points. That's ethereal. With magical attacks, ability to be rezzed thanks to Necromantic Undead, regen 6 up, and they got the Bound Spirit special rule, and also reserve move baked in. Unlike other swarms, this unit is not subject to the Undisciplined rule. In other words, this unit can be used the Inspiring Presence rule of the Army's General and Hold Your Ground rule of the Battle Standard Bearer. Pretty fun, especially for ethereal. This feels like a great unit that can absolutely just stop a unit in its tracks.
I think like the other swarm units, like bats, again, really hurt by the minimum unit size. So, you're at 157 points, 147 points, something like that for one unit of spirit hosts, is you have to take 3. I think that's what kills them. You used to see like single bases of spirit hosts just going around fucking things up. Nowadays, that's a Doom Banshee. So RIP spirit hosts. I'm pretty sure, and also they limit the rare unit with an upper limit. I guess the writers had a feel bad moment against a large unit of spirit hosts. Again, this is one of those things where if you can't hurt it, you just can't hurt it, right? So, I think spirit hosts probably just not great this time around. They've been awesome in the past.
Yeah, I like these a lot. I think these are super fun. Yeah, if you can't hurt it, you just stuck there forever. Pretty much.
Yeah. You can't combat res them, but they still have a fair amount of wounds.
Yeah, but they then, if you combat res them, you can still bring them back. They're there forever and there forever. Like, that's pretty great. Blood Knights! Oh, boy.
Blood Knights. All right, we're to the Cav. The Cav is like some of my favorite stuff. I'm excited to paint things. Blood Knights. We got, these guys are just brick shit houses. 39 points a model, weapon skill 5, 2 attacks each. The Castellan gets 3 attacks. They have martial pride, which allows them all to accept challenges, which is awesome because they're all basically vampire thralls. They have a cursed weapons, which gives them all magical attacks and an armor piercing characteristic of 1 after their lances are used up. They can take full plate, I'm pretty sure. They can have drilled. They are just G's. And as we mentioned, you can bring back with a level 4 nearby with an 18 inches, you can bring back 4 a turn without breaking a sweat. If you have the Scepter de Noiro, you can bring back 8 a turn. So a lot of builds will focus on a brick of 8 of these guys, and this is where the vampires, like the vampire in vampire counts live, I think, are in Blood Knights.
That's insane. Bringing back 8 of them. Like, being chosen knights and just bringing back 8 of them is just bananas.
Suddenly not so bad, right?
What's the downside? What's the downside?
Yeah.
They're not expensive? They're not. Not for heavy cav.
Yeah. They have Dark Vitality too, so they can march. Close Order, countercharged. Swift Stride, obviously. They are flammable, but doesn't matter as much. I guess they lose their regen.
Do not buy a Vampire Count army. Do not buy a Vampire Count army. Like, I'm just like, oh my God. I would run Blood Knights all day. These are great.
So yeah, they're so good. Black Knights.
Black Knights. Black Knights are, again, another type of heavy cavalry. These are much cheaper. These are 25 points. Not as heavily armored. They have heavy armor and shields and no barding on the skeleton. Oh, you can take barding on the skeleton steeds, but it's going to cost you an additional 2 points, 2 more points for the lances. They do have that cleaving blow special rule, and they've got first charge, undead, regeneration, and swift stride. So I guess you're just playing only 1 attack each. So you're just playing for the budget version of the Blood Knights, but that's what you're getting with the Black Knights.
You can still bring back fistfuls of them. They, again, all of these things with that in mind makes them pretty good. Black Knights are mounted Graveguard, right? So not bad, but tremendously overshadowed.
But yeah, you can only take so many Blood Knights because they're coming out of rare. I think. Yeah. So you can have more Black Knights because they're coming out of special. Yeah.
Dire Wolves. These are a classic chaff unit. They're a core option, 8 points a model, movement 9. They have open order, regen 6, reserve move built in, slavering charge, which gives them an extra strength on the charge, swift stride, vanguard. These guys are really, really handy pieces. You're probably bringing 1 or 2 units per army. Very, very good. And to wrap it all, bring it home, we got 3 minutes to talk about Hex Wraiths.
Oh, I like these. I like these a lot. So I'm just going to say Hex Wraiths are a light cavalry unit, only 31 points. They're same as all cavalry units, but they got fly 8, FYI, 8 on Cav. Love that. Magical attacks. You can bring loads back with Necromantic Undead, regen, and terror on just a unit. I love that, but also ethereal. And if you can't deal with them, you can't deal with them. And I feel like I don't know why you're not loading into units that you can't deal with. And they're not that much more expensive than Black Knights. I don't know why I'm not taking them. You know what I mean?
They're awesome, and they also have Spectral Reapers, which allows them to fly over and deal a Strength 4 hit with no armor saves permitted. Can be kind of hard to line up with just your straight 8-inch fly, but again, if you're buffing that movement with Mortis Engine or Van Hell's Dance Macabre, you can get over a bunch of units and deal some decent amount of hits just by flying over, which is pretty dope.
Yeah.
They seem cool.
Just going to shout out the corpse cart, worth mentioning. You can obviously bring up to 3 corpse carts. Corpse cart could be a wizard, which is good with Necromancer Law of Magic. Big news for the corpse cart, the Balefire Brazier, or the warped, I can't say that, the Tintinipulation, which is 15 points. The Brazier makes enemy wizards within 15 inches add 1 to the casting value of spells that they try to cast. And the Warped Tintibilation, when friendly units within 15 of this model recover a number of lost wounds due to a character using Invocation to Heck, which is bringing everyone back, on a 4-up, the unit recovers an additional wound. In addition, friendly units within 15 of this model reduce the number of wounds they lose from unstable by 1. So, you're just healing more and losing less for what feels like a pretty cheap upgrade, 15 points. Corpse Cart is pretty expensive. It's 115 points, but you do get to bring a level 1 wizard with it, which is, at least nice to throw some dice at.
Yep, and again, gives you more options for Van Hels or the other one. The other thing, too, is that 4-up may not sound like a big deal, that extra wound. Big deal, though, when it's on a character or a monster. And you're able to bring back more than 1 wound on it in a turn. Crazy. Black Coach is fun. It's a lot more reliable than it's ever been before. Just very expensive at 205 points. I don't mind the Black Coach, but again, I really want to take a Black Coach choice. I don't think it's a very good choice, especially when for the same amount of points, you get a Terrorgeist, 205 points, Wailing Dirge. It's somewhere between a dragon and actually it's just basically a fucking dragon. D6 stomps, 5-up regen, terror, swift stride, Indomitable 1, infested, which means something. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, it does something when it dies.
D6 strength 2 hits, AP 1. I mean, 205 points is basically what you'd be paying for some combat lords. And for a combat lord loadout, sure, you can add more points onto them. But 6 wounds, toughness 6, with stomps, regen. I honestly think they're comparable and better.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bell is ringing. JVP is at the door. It's Halloween. I'm going to go see his amazing costume.
I hope you've enjoyed the deep dive.
A very based police officer.
Yeah.
And yes, I hope you have enjoyed the deep dive of Vampire Accounts. We love you. Happy Halloween. Very spooky.